have we?
Hello, it's Thursday, October the 5th. The Goose is in town, but more importantly, so is the AskTCW podcast live. Yes, good evening and thank you for joining us on this AskTCW podcast. Now, we have all got our mushy peas at the ready while we are going to be answering your questions because, let's be honest, Goose Fair is nothing without the mushy peas. But anyway, joining myself, Aaron, this evening is Tina.
Hiya!
Hiya. Adam.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening, and somebody will be joining us shortly, and his name is Ant, but he's had to reboot his computer. So Ant will join us at some point, but you know, who else do you need when you've got Tina and Adam? You know, let's be honest. It's
Flattery
like
will get you nowhere, Aaron.
It's like the Olivia Newton-John and the John Travolta of the Cat's Whiskers. That's my view on that. But anyway,
although I'm never looking that good in a PVC one piece. Let's get that out there straight away.
And I can't dance.
Oh, okay. So no John Travolta or Olivia Newton-John. But anyway, we'll move on. Obviously, it has been a very good week for the Nottingham Panthers, and we have some questions regarding the CHL from you guys. But if you would like to get in touch with us whilst we are on air tonight, then you are more than welcome to. Just pop onto Twitter and use our handle at CatsWhiskersTV, or use the hashtag AskTCW, and we will answer your questions if you get in touch with us. But let's start off with some breaking news this evening, which I think shocked everyone from the Panthers Nation, is that we have signed a new netminder by the name of Patrick Galbraith. He is Danish. He is 31 years old, and his previous club was a club that we know from this season's pre-season in Krefeld Penguins. But so very quickly, obviously, in his last season, a goals against of 2.86 and a save percentage of 0.903. So very good stats. We've had a little chat on our WhatsApp group this evening, guys and girls. But just very quickly, initial thoughts, and I'll come to ladies first. Tina.
Oh, me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can understand. You sort of have your own. Everyone's going to have their own opinion about this, and I think myself and Adam have kind of got sort of the same views on this in terms of the possible implications for Sam Gospel. You know, and by the same token, I can understand why the Panthers are shoring up in the netminding department. You know, we don't have a good history in terms of keeping our number one fit. So if we are going to make a good showing of it for you know, our league and Challenge Cup campaigns domestically and in the next round of the CHL, then you know that it's not the wrong thing to be doing. But, you know, I think we need to do better this season what we didn't do last season, which is managing the netminding tandem.
Yes, and Adam, as Tina said, obviously you've got kind of the same sort of view or sort of questions, really, regarding how this is going to affect the netminding group with Garnett and Sam Gospel.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the start of the season when we signed Sam Gospel, you know, I expect that it was probably explained to him that he was going to be part of a net mining trio. And, you know, he still came and signed, you know, knowing full well that he might not see a lot of ice time this year. But then with what happened with Zakharchenko, you know, Gospel probably thought to himself, well, you know, that's going to be an opportunity for me to play, you know, a few more games and get a bit more ice time, you know, between the sticks. So, you know, and I know he's only played one competitive game for us this year against Sheffield, but he didn't let anybody down, and he put in a pretty impressive performance, all things considered. So I'm a little bit surprised that we've gone into the market for a third netminder. I mean, I was looking at his stats a few minutes ago, and he's got a pretty stellar CV there, and he's played in some very good leagues, arguably better leagues than the Elite League, and some very good clubs, as you said. Turned out for Krefeld. I think he spent quite a bit of time in the Swedish top flight as well, and his figures look more than respectable. So in terms of the calibre of the signing, absolutely top draw. You can't really ask for anything more than that. But going back to what Tina said, you will need to manage them, because I'm sure certainly Garnett and Galbraith will want to be starting every game, because they are top calibre netminders. So good luck Corey, because he's going to have to try and get them through without being overly disappointed if one netminder's playing well and on a bit of a hot streak, and Corey says, well, you're going to have to sit the next game or two, because I've got an equally good netminder waiting in the wings to play on Saturday or Wednesday or whenever. So interesting signing, but we'll see how it goes. I think my sort of overriding conclusion is that it's a great pickup, and is a top quality netminder.
I mean, just for people that didn't attend the Neil Black Q&A, which was held at the Salt Box just before the CHL game against Turku, and the question came up about whether we would be signing another netminder, obviously because of what happened with what Neil Black called the Ukrainian. So there we go. And he said, look, we were always going to go with 3 netminders, 2 import netminders, and that situation hadn't changed. And he said that they were actively looking for that second import netminder. So I think we were always going to sign it. And it's really strange, because we've had a question in from, I think their name is Aaron Lord, and he just says, how do you think, obviously, with the fact that Garnett has played a lot of minutes, he's put out a lot of good performances, especially in the CHL, but he says, isn't this good from the club that, they said they were going to go with 2 import netminders, and then not kind of gone with a theory of, Garnett is playing very well, and they do have gospel. They've stuck by the word. So isn't it good, Tina, that the club are following in with what they said originally?
Yes. I suppose, there is a certain amount of keeping promises to the fans. We've already sort of had the push-pull battle between Corey Nielsen and Neil Black, in terms of everybody was going to be in for the start of training camp, and there were a couple who just sort of missed the deadline, and the way everything has sort of gone, I don't think anybody really cares now. So that particular promise, I think we can we can maybe forgive it, but I'm sure there'll be some people who won't let it go at all. So they'll store it up for later to sort of bring out of the archives at some point in the future. Fine. If the club want to go with 3 netminders, yes, they've gone out and got 3 netminders like they said they were going to. Great, but I just want to sort of reiterate my point. We do need to manage the netminding tandem, otherwise it's pointless having the 3.
Okay, and just very quickly on this matter, Adam, because I'm sure we'll talk about it more on next week's podcast on Monday, but obviously people have talked about, you've mentioned about gospel, etc. But if Garnett did get injured, for example, he played against Sheffield this Saturday and he got injured, and obviously, luckily we've got a game in the CHL on Tuesday, which doesn't matter now. But if it was a long-term injury, say, that would maybe keep him out of that qualifying knockout round, there would be people in our fan base going, well, why haven't we got a backup backup import netminder? So in that situation, the club have filled the gap, haven't they, really?
Yeah, they have. And, to be fair to them, that was a stated intention at the start of the season, that they were running with 3 netminders. And, I think that not many people will disagree with what I'm going to say, but the calibre of the 3 netminders that we've got this year is far better and greater than the calibre of the 3 netminders we had last season, at the end of the season. So, the goaltending situation, there's been a massive upgrade this year. And you're right, Aaron. If something did happen to Garnett in the next game or two, he has logged quite a lot of games so far this season, and he's no spring chicken. I'm sure he won't like me mentioning that, but he's probably getting on towards a veteran sort of age for a netminder. We need to manage his minutes, and I'm sure that might have been possibly one of the reasons why he actually signed for us, knowing that his workload might have been shared out a little bit with the other netminders. So yeah, it's good really, because hopefully over the course of the season, if we use the 3 netminders well, and we choose the right sort of games for them, it will be to our benefit, because it will keep all 3 as fresh as they possibly can be.
Okay. And as I say, we will talk about the signing of Patrick Galbraith, not related to the world famous Jade Galbraith by any means, but on next week's podcast. But I believe Ant has joined us. Ant, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yay!
Yes.
Welcome to the party.
I don't know what you guys did, but as soon as you rang me for the Skype call, my internet just went, I don't like that.
Well, now there's a sign if ever I heard one.
Exactly.
Evening.
Good evening.
Sorry I'm late. Better late than never.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us. Right, let's get on to the questions from you guys that you have sent in to us over the last few days. A bit of a mixture, like I say, between CHL Panther-related questions and a few Elite League ones thrown in there as well. So we will start off with some Panther-related questions. And obviously on the back of the win against Turku in the CHL, the fact that we qualified, and then obviously Mountfield's result against Bern, meaning that we topped the group, it's only right that we ask John Roper's question, which is, are you at all concerned that with your great form, potential bigger clubs may come in for your better players and even your coach? Now, seeing that you've just joined us, Ant, we'll save you for last, and we will go to Tina. Are you scared, Tina?
Am I scared? Well, I think part of the problem is, the dreaded 2-week contracts, the 2 weeks notice in the contracts. I think there's always a danger that you're going to lose, some of your better players, because, with the best will in the world, I think a lot of hockey players do want to be loyal to the clubs that have signed them at the start of the season, but everybody's got a price. Everybody's got bills to pay. They desperate need to eat every now and then, and if they have a few more pounds or euros or whatever the currency is thrown in their general direction, then there's always the possibility. I think the reason for John's question is, we've got a few players who have had some absolutely sublime performances in the CHL. You can't deny that. I mean, Mok Shentsev's goal alone on Tuesday is probably going to, make people's eyebrows raise a little bit. Josh Schaller, top scorer for the Panthers in the competition. Jan Sauvé has put in a few good performances and had, a few goals himself. He's been quite tidy on the points. So, I don't know. I mean, you can't really even take the Brits out of that, because, we've all said, how well all of our regular Brits have started the season in general, not just the CHL season. So, the fact that we have qualified for the next round of the CHL is obviously, turning a few heads, and we're doing things that, bigger and better clubs just did not expect us to do. So it does sort of put us out there a little bit. So yeah, I think there's always a danger. But this year, this season and this campaign so far, it just sort of highlights it, really. I think players are in danger of leaving whatever. As I say, every hockey player has their price.
I mean, Adam, obviously, the longer we stay in this competition and you're putting yourself in that shop window more and more, as Neil Black said at the Q&A. I mean, let's go worst case scenario, and we do see some players leave. I mean, can you hold it against them, or do you feel that they should be stopping here for the season, because that is what they are signed for? Somebody asked a question on the Q&A about short-term contracts only here for the CHL, and everybody is on a long-term, season contract. Nobody is on a short-term contract.
Yeah. Well, I think Tina's right in that generally in sport, on a more wider sense, is there any loyalty left in it, in any particular sport? I mean, I'd probably argue not, because as Tina mentioned there, every player will have a price. I'm sure most of them have got agents or representatives that, look out for their best interests. And you've got to remember, it's only a short career, possibly even shorter than a football or a cricket player's career. So, I personally, even though it would be a wrench, to see some of the star performers, if you want to call them that, the Sauvays, the Chalers, the Moksantevs leave, because of what they've done in the CHL. It's a double-edged sword in some ways, because, we might have agents that are coming to the Panthers saying, I've got a great player for you, who wouldn't look out of place at your organisation because of what we've done in the CHL. So, we might lose the players, but if that happened, I actually think that we wouldn't be in that bad a position, because we'd get offered some pretty decent players, and players might actually think, you know what, after seeing what the Panthers have done in the CHL, I wouldn't mind going to play in the UK, and we'll see what happens from there. So, it would be sad to see some of these players go. But, as I said, it's a short career, and they need to maximise the sort of earnings and the salary they can take from it.
And finally, and I'll bring you in on this question now, and just on one point within John's question is the coach. He says, are you concerned that we might even lose, Corey Nielsen? Is that something that has ever crossed your mind, whilst watching the CHL? Or, losing players in mid-season is one thing, isn't it? We've all seen it over the years, and like Tina says, with the 2-week, sort of get-out clause in the contracts, it's not really a surprise. But to lose the coach midway through the season, is that something that you're sort of afraid might happen?
I glitched out. I assume you're talking to me, so I got you asking about the coach.
Yes.
So basically, you're asking me, is Corey going to leave halfway through the season? Because
is that something that is of concern to you?
Is it a concern? Yes, it definitely is, and the same for the players as well. Do I think it'll happen? Who knows? Like Tina and Adam have already said, everybody has the price, and I would not stand in anybody's way if they got a better offer elsewhere. It'd just be nice if we could keep this group together for this year, and who knows going forward.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you for your question, John. We will move on to another question, and we'll move on to Richard Holowaka, if I say that right. Holowaka. Great name, by the way. But Richard says, can you quite believe that the Panthers are still the only team with an away win in Group F? Now, obviously, with, like I say, Mountfield's result against Bern last night, it does mean that the Panthers are the only team to win away. So, I mean, Ant, can you believe it? Can you believe? We've talked about it. We've done podcasts about it. We've spoken about it many a time. But can you believe on that one specific, kind of stat that the Panthers are the only team to win an away game in Group F?
Yes, I can really, because Mountfield only let us win, didn't they? Because they didn't want to be in the CHL.
You wouldn't have thought so after last night, would you?
So, Well, looking at the quality of the three teams that we've got in our group, no, I'm not surprised that it's been a bit of a homer. Am I surprised that we? Yes, of course, I'm surprised that we're the only ones to win, because I did not expect us to be sat top of the group, qualified for the next round with a game to spare. But looking at the quality of the three, I always thought, you're going to be strongest at home, and I thoroughly expect Burn to beat Manfield next week.
I mean, Tina, Ant just says it, and it's crazy when somebody else says it, but, I can't believe that Panthers are sitting top of the group with a game to spare. And, that's where we're going to stay. I mean, we talked about it the other night, and obviously you presented that mini podcast that we did after the game. So here's your chance to kind of, have your little say. But, listening to Ant then, even I still can't believe that, let alone the fact that we're the only team in the group to win away. So, I mean, what's your feeling about it? Can you believe, that we were the only team to win away and that we are top of the group and that's where we're going to stay?
If you'd have said to me, when we were doing our preview podcasts on the CHL, when we were all looking at the games and going, yeah, we might get a win here with Mountfield, we'll definitely have trouble with Burn, and obviously we've played we were discussing all that, and we were all sort of at odds and trying to pick out where we'd get our one win, and if we could actually do better than our one win last time round. If somebody had said to me, if Doc Brown had turned up in his DeLorean and said, you know what, actually you're going to have 5 wins in the group, and you're going to qualify for the next round with a game to spare, and you're going to be the only team that gets an away win in the group, I would have laughed so hard it would have hurt, because there's no way on this earth I would have believed it. And I'm not saying that to demean what the Panthers team, the Panthers coaches. I am saying that because of the quality of the teams that we had around us. The opposition that we had, and the absolutely seemingly insurmountable obstacle that was facing us. We're sort of looking at these 3. Really well organised, well drilled teams with very good reputations, very good performances. It just, I know what you're saying. You listen to somebody else saying it, and you still have to sort of pinch yourself to just check that everything that you're looking at is correct. It's, and I cannot stress this enough. I'm not saying any of that to demean the Panthers team. I mean, this is UK ice hockey, and the recruitment has been fantastic. The coaching has been brilliant, and Tuesday night in particular, that was the best. That was the best hockey performance that I've seen for ages. It was like there was. I mean, the one thing I said on our mini podcast was the absolute 100% commitment to blocking shots was just. I just looking back on it now and watching it during the game. And it was the one thing that really, really stood out for me: the absolute commitment with the whole team to try and stop the puck getting as far as Michael Garnett, and it was absolutely wonderful. So, the results are there in black and white for everybody to see. Can I quite believe it? It's whenever you do think about it, you just get the warm and fuzzies, don't you?
So you certainly do. I mean, Adam, just coming to you finally. Winning at home is one thing. You have your own crowd, and we've seen, our arena over time. It doesn't have to be a full house, but if the crowd get behind the team and it works both ways, and the team are performing well, then it can sound like there's 10,000 people in that arena at times. So winning your home games is obviously what you aim for, but winning away, It is very different now. Obviously, yes, we've only won in Mountfield, and we lost in Burn at the start of the campaign, and we've still got the Turku game next Tuesday. But even to win away, it's something very special, isn't it? And to be that only team in the group, says something about the group and how they've worked together, like Tina has said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tina made some good points there. We're going up against teams with much bigger resources and greater resources than us. Better players on the face of it, much bigger budgets. So, to actually go to one of those teams and pick up a win is an absolutely incredible achievement. And fair play to everybody connected with the organisation, because thinking back to the start of the tournament, I looked at Mountfield as the one winnable game at home. I thought the rest of the games, we were going to struggle to pick up pretty much anything else. So, going away to Mountfield and getting a win in the Czech Republic is absolutely great. And you're right. It's one thing to win at home when you've got all your fans there, creating a really hostile atmosphere and giving the team the support, but when you go on the road to I won't say that the farthest flung places in Europe, because there are a lot further places you can go than the Czech Republic, but you've got to have a lot of resolve. You've got to be very smart, and the coaching needs to be very switched on. And it sounds like, and obviously we saw that Corey had a plan. Corey had a plan to bring back 2 points from the Czech Republic. So fair play to the coaching, because he outcoached his opponent behind the Mountfield bench. And, we got all the sour grapes from Mountfield afterwards, but they're obviously, wanting to qualify on the basis of their performance yesterday. So maybe they've had second thoughts about their participation in the CHL this year.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you very much for your question, Richard. We will move on to another CHL related question, and it's been mentioned regarding Mountfield and their supposedly lack of interest in the CHL. So we will answer Hayley's question now. And it says, why do you think that European leagues / teams fans appear to undervalue the CHL? Would it be more credible if the KHL were involved? Now, I have something that Mr. Black said regarding the KHL, but I will say that after Tina has answered the question.
I think it may be something along the lines, maybe a similar sort of scenario to how managers in the in football's Premier League view the international competitions. We've had. I don't know. I don't really follow football much anymore, but I know in the past there have been stories of managers making up injuries for their star players, so they don't go away on international duty and don't end up coming back injured. As like a guarantee that they won't, that they're protecting the star players, I suppose. And that was one of the points that the Mountfield coach made. He said because I think they either rested or they didn't have available their usual top line. So that was one of the things that he said. You sort of bodies get banged up in a competition that it's nice. This is my words, not his now, but a competition that it's nice to be involved in, but commercially it probably doesn't do a lot for the likes of teams from the Czech Republic and Switzerland and Finland, because they for them it's quite a lucrative business, and they have to look after they have to look after the game as they see it. They have to make sure that the bread and butter works. And they get the bread and butter going on, essentially.
Adam, why do you think, obviously from our point of view, it's great to see these, better, what we class as so-called better teams come and play in our arena, and to test ourselves against those higher caliber of players. But why do you think the Europeans don't really sort of have that same view, and they kind of concentrate on their own leagues and their own cups, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Aaron. You've got to remember that these teams are coming from leagues where, certainly on the face of it, the calibre of hockey is much greater. So I just wonder whether they think that, we're going to turn up in a battered old minibus, and that's the sort of standard of hockey that they're going to see. So they're a bit turned off from going to watch their team play because they think that their side's going to beat us 25-0 and do it all in first gear. So I think next season, I'm assuming that we're going to have representation again in the CHL. I think that the teams that whoever qualifies from the UK draw in the competition won't take us lightly, and their fans might actually think, you know what, this is going to be a good game, so we're going to go along because our team needs the support, because the opposition, it's not going to be a walk in the park, and we're not going to just turn them over in first gear. So yeah, it does come back to that thing. You look at the Finnish league, very, very, very strong. You look at the Swiss league, and that's incredibly strong. And the Czech league is probably the one that's closest to the elite league, but even that is stronger. So, do the fans of Mountfield, Burn and Turku get excited about a game against Nottingham? Probably not. But next season, if we're in the same position, they might think a little bit differently and maybe give Nottingham and UK ice hockey a little bit more respect.
Very true, and let's hope that actually does happen for the benefit of our league in general. But the final bit of Hayley's question was in regards to the KHL. Now, I can reveal for anybody that wasn't at Neil Black's Q&A, he did say that the Champions Hockey League are looking to get the KHL involved somehow in the Champions Hockey League. So maybe not next season, or it might be the season after, I don't know, but they were looking as they want to add a team from the KHL into the competition. So, Ant, do you think that would be a good thing for the competition in general?
It would be great for the CHL, but we best win it this year then, haven't we? Because otherwise we ain't got a chance when the KHL team comes in.
Well, I mean, my only question in that is, what's in it for the KHL? Because I don't know. I mean, turn it around the other way. I mean, we've done a bit of, we've done a bit of surprising everybody. We've done our bit to cause an upset in the competition. But I think a lot of KHL teams are going to just look at this competition and just sort of think it. I don't know if they might think it's kind of a little bit beneath them, to be honest. I mean, just from my view. I mean, if you look at the NHL stance on the Olympics, they're not going to have an Olympic break. So there's quite a few players who are upset about that because they want to go and play for their country and come back with medals and such. But yeah, they don't want to have a break because again they're looking after their business, and I'm just wondering if the KHL may have a similar stance on something like the CHL.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point that you bring up, to be fair to you. And I think from what I kind of gathered from what Neil Black was saying was it was very much kind of the CHL were looking to sort of entice the KHL into the competition. And I don't think it would ever be a foregone conclusion that the Champions Hockey League would go, we'll give the KHL a spot. I think it's maybe a little bit of wooing and a little bit of saying that, this is good for you, etc. But I think what we've also got to realise is the Champions Hockey League is still, it's still a young competition. It's what's it been around for? 4 years now, is it?
Yeah.
There's still, I think it's still figuring out. I mean, it's changed a lot since the first time the Panthers were in it on its, in its first season, if you would, because then it was a lot more teams, etc. And we signed special players for the CHL, but now it's changed. So I think there's still a lot of things that the CHL can do and learn from, and maybe enticing the KHL into the competition might be one thing. Who knows? I suppose we will wait and see. But thank you very much for your question.
Oh, could I just add one point, Aaron?
Of course you can. No problem
about
at all.
The
Go
KHL.
Yeah.
Possibly the teams that are ranked lowest and the leagues that are ranked the lowest might well, miss out or be the losers in this, because say the KHL were given 2 or 3 slots in it and the format of the competition didn't change, then that's 2 or 3 teams at the bottom end of the rankings that won't make it. So it depends, I guess, on how the UK and the Elite League is viewed amongst all the other leagues in Europe. But
it could very well be us, couldn't it?
It might well be us. It might be the UK that misses out on having 2 entrants into it. Well, I know it's only 1 because we won the Continental Cup last year, and that was our route into the tournament this year. But we might lose our guaranteed place in the CHL, which wouldn't be good. So whilst it might improve the overall calibre of the CHL and it might improve its status because they've got entrants from the KHL, we actually might lose out, or France's team might lose out. So there were winners and losers, I guess.
And I think that brings up a really good point in the sense of, it's very easy for us as Panthers fans to rave about the CHL and say what the Panthers are doing this season, and Cardiff, with respect to them, winning the games that they have won as well, is great for the Elite League as a whole. Now, what you'll get is you will get some fans of other teams going, don't care, rubbish, who gives a monkeys about that, you haven't won any league titles, you've won 1 league title in 56 years or whatever. But for the wider of the game, what Panthers and the Cardiff Devils have done so far in this competition could potentially mean that the Elite League gets 2 spots next year. And like you say, Adam, a team from the French league might lose a spot or whatever. So as much as we rave about it and say it's fantastic, you can't deny that it has the potential to be good for the Elite League as a whole. Would anybody disagree on that, really?
No, not at all. I mean, we were looking at the CHL rankings on Monday after the podcast, and the Elite League is up to 8th in the CHL rankings, which is just incredible. Panthers as a team, we're the 40th best team in the CHL, as in that's from start to finish. So I think what us and the Devils have done this year, and obviously Sheffield getting the win last year, Braid the year before, and our win against Hamburg the year before that, it's all going to add points, if you like, if it's like the FIFA coefficient rankings, I guess. And I really hope that we get 2 spots next year.
It shows progression as well, doesn't it, from the league in general? But
in fact, I'll just add to that. I actually hope we get 3 spots next year, because I hope the Steelers win the Continental Cup. There you go.
Wow.
With silence.
Wow.
Not like I'm greedy.
October the 5th. There you go. But that's another conversation for another day, because it shows you how important that Continental Cup win was, and that competition in general. But like I say, that's for another time. But we will move on to another question. A very short question this is, and it's directed to one person on the panel tonight. And Paul Radford would like to know how productive Ant was at work on Wednesday, because let's be fair, Ant, you have been dancing on that CHL ceiling for a fair few days now, haven't you? So was your boss happy with you on Wednesday? Did you do the right quota?
Well, I'm lucky enough to work in a job where we have flexi time. So I rolled in about 9:15, and I was out of the door for 3:15. I came home, went to bed, and then got up a couple of hours later.
Do you know what? Paul is listening to this, and he was so looking forward to your question, to his question being answered, and he's just, I can see him now. He's tutting, he's shaking his head with that answer. Flexi time. You don't want to hear flexi time in that question, do you? But, fair enough. Have you come down from your CHL ceiling anyway, Ant?
Are you
still dancing?
I'm still dancing, because when I got out of bed last night, I came downstairs and stuck the recording on and watched it again, and I still can't believe it. It's just absolutely fantastic, isn't it? What a time to be a Panthers fan at the moment.
Exactly. Well, you keep on dancing on that CHL ceiling, mate, I'm telling you. All right, these
I'm never going to live that down.
No, you're not. No. Right, let's move on to some Elite League questions now, and we'll go with Craig Chalmers' question. And Craig asks, why don't the EIHL have a 3-2-1 points system as per the CHL? Wouldn't it make teams try harder to finish in regular time? Now, Tina, I think this has been a talking point on maybe previous AskTCWs or just podcasts in general, but I mean, do you think it's something that the Elite League should be looking towards, introducing the 3-2-1, Ted Rogers?
The what? Ted Rogers?
Oh, come on. You can't remember Dusty Bin?
Dusty Bin? Oh, Tina.
I know. Gosh, misspent youth, obviously. Well, I'm sure... that at some point in the season, because I'm sure Jono's done this last couple of years or so, that he's sort of done his comparison tables of where teams would be, if we did have the 3-2-1 point system. Now, I agree. I think it would make I think it would make teams try harder to finish in regulation time. However, I think most teams want to get it done in regulation time anyway, especially now that we've got the 3-on-3 overtime, because that really doesn't suit some players. I've got no particular examples, but let's take you back a season. Last season when we didn't have Evan Mosey. And before we knew we didn't have Evan Mosey, and we knew that 3-on-3 overtime was coming, we were all, everybody was really excited for it. It's, this is where he's going to absolutely shine. And then he didn't come, and as it turns out, we weren't quite so good at 3-on-3 overtime. So I think 3-on-3 overtime was possibly a motivating factor anyway in terms of teams wanting to finish in regulation time, because the first time I saw 3-on-3 overtime in the NHL, I was just sort of glued to the screen. I thought, this is brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. However, I don't think the players like it as much as the fans. I think it's there's a lot of open ice. A lot can go wrong. It's one. It's a massive chessboard. A massive 60 mile an hour chessboard. So I think it's I think that is definitely something that motivates teams to get the game done and dusted, wrapped up in regulation time. However, I think there are merits to the 3-2-1 point system. I think some of what it may come down to is possibly that people are scared of change. What the sort of implications are, and I don't think it's something that has really got. I don't think the Elite League have got time to discuss it at the moment. I think there are bigger problems, bigger fish to fry, more important matters that get discussed around the boardroom table than changing the point system. The point system works as it is at the moment. Could it work better? I don't know. I would love to hear some arguments for and against it, because I'm really on the fence about it. If we ever did implement it, fine. If we didn't, if we never implement it, also fine. So I'd be quite interested to hear from people who would, who have a strong argument either way, and not necessarily with the view to changing, to sway my view one way or the other. But I would just be interested to hear both sides of the argument. But it has merit. But I think that while there are more important matters to be discussed in the Elite League, I think it may just take it'll be on a very, very low shelf.
Okay. Well, we've got two other people on the panel tonight, so I'll go around both of you. Adam, I'll start with you first. Just a quick one-word reply to for, against, or on the fence for the 3-2-1.
Fence.
Okay,
and bring it in for the Challenge Cup. Make the Challenge Cup a bit different.
Oh,
that's more than one.
That's more than one word, that's an interesting.
Didn't listen to the question there, and I know you're dancing on the CHL ceiling, but don't disrespect my questioning.
Hey,
do you know what I mean?
I've had less time on this podcast tonight. Than the rest of them, so I'm entitled to a few more words.
Well, it is an interesting point, though. It's an interesting idea. with bringing it in for the Challenge Cup. If we're going to keep the Challenge Cup, maybe it does need a bit of freshening up. Maybe that might help. I don't know.
I mean, I did it one season for Spick's thread on the cage. I was actually checking every week and updating the table as to the difference that it made, and all that happened in that league table was us and Belfast swap positions. It didn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I was going to say that a little bit earlier when Tina mentioned that Jono's done it in the past as well. From my really poor memory, was that I don't think it changed too much. I think the person that was still at the top of the table was still at the top of the table. I think a few people maybe moved around, sort of fifth or sixth position, but it didn't really have that much effect on it. So is it something that we just don't necessarily need at the moment? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's something that, when they tweet out at Elite League board meetings, maybe it's something that people should tweet in and see whether it should be discussed, or when we get a chance to speak to somebody from a club or from the Elite League, we should maybe put that to them. But thank you very much for your answers on that, guys, especially Ants. I really appreciated Ants' answer to Craig's question. Right, let's move on to another question, and we will go to Frank's question. And Frank's question is, with Thompson's comments, that's obviously regarding Paul Thompson's comments on officials going unchallenged and Fife ignoring the instructions to put up plexiglass, is the league leaving itself wide open for further disregard of its rules? And is the tail wagging the dog? Now, obviously, Ant, I'll come to you first because you like disregarding the rules, and you've not had much time on this podcast. Your agent has just texted me. So, I mean, obviously, Paul Thompson, crappy ice, crappy officiating, crappy game. There was plenty of more, sort of statements made on the officiating. And then, the Fife got told to put up plexiglass, haven't. I mean, where do you stand on those points and Frank's question in total?
On the fence.
Don't be a cop out. Get it done.
Oh, again, you've come to me first, and now I've got to watch what I say, haven't I? Thompson, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that nothing came out of that. Like I say, the first interview I heard, he just called the officials inept officiating. Now, people got fined for similar comments last season. Is it again the case of the Elite League moving the goalposts, or did they think, yes, maybe the officiating wasn't very good after that? But still, even if they thought that, you can't have coaches or members of the teams coming out and saying those things about the officials, especially these officials. They're obviously all multi-millionaires, aren't they? They get paid loads to do this job. Not. Yeah. So it's like there's not enough of them as it is. So how are you going to entice new officials to the league and to the sport in general if they get no protection from the league's governing body? It's a bit daft. Moving on to Fife. I remember the incident in question because it was to do with that fan and the player bench, wasn't it? However, was it a case of they should have done it this year, or did they have X amount of time to get it fitted in? I can't actually remember that.
I believe it was meant to be in for the start of this season.
Okay. Well, in that case, why isn't it?
Well, that is the $64,000 question, isn't it? Really?
That's what Frank's asking you, Ant. I mean, it's what we got you on the podcast for.
Well, I don't know, because I'm not an Elite League official, and I guarantee that I never will be because I can't keep my mouth shut. I'd actually say that was probably worse than not fining Thompson, to be honest, because it's a mandate that was put down by the league. It was a thing that came on the back of what could have been a very, very... now, is it a big case of Fife can't afford to do that? Is it a case of Fife have gone back to the league and said, right, we've moved fans away from that area, or they're in the process of getting it done? I don't know. you'd be better off asking DTM and the Fife lot to find out what's going on there, and maybe Mr. Tony Smith. He might have something to say.
Right,
maybe we should have asked it at the Q&A.
Maybe we should have. Yeah, that's a very good point. And maybe if Neil Black does another Q&A, then maybe somebody will ask that question. But Adam, these kind of questions when you've got fans asking about, Paul Thompson's comments, or even previous, he's not the first person to sort of slag off a referee and question a refereeing performance, but it does there is this meant to be this policy in there that people can't tweet after a certain amount of time, and so it's not great, is it really? Because you've got to set some sort of standard. So is there even a standard?
Who knows anymore? I mean, you look for consistency, don't you, when something like this happens? And I would imagine that there hasn't been a change of rule from last season to this season, meaning that, coaches can be a lot more forceful in their views towards things like officiating in games that they've just coached in. And Anton was absolutely spot on. The officials aren't, particularly wealthy in the sense that they earn a lot from what they do. They don't, they don't earn king's ransoms from this. So you expect, or they expect, I guess, to get a bit more protection from the league. So for Thompson's comments to go unpunished is, in my opinion, ridiculous, because that has set the new standard. So if Nielsen comes out on Saturday, if we lose to Sheffield and the officiating's poor, then I expect that no action will be taken against Nielsen. But what does that result in? Every coach wades in because they think they could have refereed the game better, and before you know it, you've got a recruitment crisis because we don't have enough refs and linesmen as it is, or linespeople, I should say. But we run the risk, if we don't give the officials a bit more protection, of driving them away, because they just get absolutely fed up of having open season on them from coaches and officials. So, the Thompson comments, that should have been nipped in the bud. There should have been some action taken against those. But, the league have set a precedent now. So the next coach that comes out and blames crappy officiating, that's fine.
I mean, and you just wanted to come in quickly, I believe.
Yeah, I think we should just clarify that as far as we know, no action's been taken. Now, I'd find it a bit weird if action has been taken and nothing's been said about it.
Yeah.
But we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, so something could have happened. However, as far as we are aware, it hasn't. So these are our opinions. So a slight disclaimer there, so we don't get sued.
It's always good to cover the backs.
I mean, just very quickly, Tina, on Adam's kind of final point that he made is, it's kind of, the rule's kind of been set now, hasn't it? And it's got to be one rule for one and one for everybody else. So, if we see in 3 months' time some, a coach or a player in a post-game interview question the refereeing decisions or anything like that, well, we know what's going to happen now, don't we? Surely.
Well, we should do. I mean, we say this time and time again about the officials themselves. As long as they're being consistent, then that's more all you can ask. They call the game as they see it, and they are consistent. Consistency is the word, isn't it? Really. So if next week, one of the other coaches or players, as you say, complains about the officiating, and then they get fined, then we're all going to go, whoa, just a minute, hang on, why, where's the consistency? And the Elite League have got to tread very carefully, because, like has already been said, we're going to end up with, we're going to end up with referees and lines people not wanting to officiate in the Elite League. And without the officials, we have no game. So, just do something about it. You know, and I'm not just talking about finding Paul Thompson. You know, we hear this year in, year out. You know, you've got two different ways. I've got two different schools of thought here. I've got the school of thought which I had last year. If Paul Thompson has a problem with the officiating in the Elite League, surely he is the best placed person to do something about it. Go and talk to your boss. Your boss is the chairman of the Elite League. Now, I will just sort of put my other school of thought in there. You know, Tony Smith can walk into an Elite League board meeting and say, right, this is what, you know, we as the Sheffield Steelers want to happen going forward with officiating. He's got to convince 11 other GMs to do that. So, you know, you've got a lot of opposition. You know, I mean, let's go back to the conference system. We were all sort of expecting. I think the majority of us were expecting 2 conferences of 6, and the Scottish team said, "Well, that's not sustainable for us. So we want 3 conferences of 4." And if we don't get to 3 conferences of 4, you know, allegedly there was talk that they were going to pull out of the Elite League. So we were going to lose 3 teams, gain 2, lose 3. I mean, where does that leave you? That leaves you with a 9-team league. So, you know, you had to sort of, you know, bow to what works for all 12 teams. And in this case, it was probably the right thing to do. But with something like this, and I disagree slightly. Was it Ant? You said that the plexi was more important than the comments made by Paul Thompson. I honestly think it's the other way around, because the incident that you know led to Fife being tasked with putting up plexiglass behind their away bench, that was born out of one incident. We are having repeated incidents of players and coaches whinging on about officiating. You know, I mean, I'm sure I said it last season on a podcast. The game of hockey has changed, you know, in massive ways from when it was first played. You know, if you even take it back to like the 1980s when when hockey first came back to Nottingham, the game has moved on, but the tools that the officials have to do their job have not. So you know, there are lots of things that can be put in place, and we're getting to the point now more and more, because the game is so quick, that technology has to play a massive part, and we are so far behind, it's painful. So if we want to make a positive difference to what is happening in terms of officials, we have to give them the available tools to do their job, so that coaches and players have no need to whinge about the officiating in the first place.
There you go, very passionate answer from Tina there, so thank you very much for that. Moving on to the final few questions now. This one comes from John Casey. And John asks, with the addition of 2 and possibly more games to be played, would you double up Challenge Cup games with the league to avoid fixture congestion? Now, we have 3 remaining Challenge Cup games, 2 against Brea Clan and 1 against the Manchester Storm. So, Adam, if you had the possibility, would you double them up to maybe save on another game that was meant to be played another time?
Don't know what to think about this, to be honest.
I do. I'm willing to give you a quick berth if you want to think of an answer.
Go on, you go first, then, Tina, and then
I just can't believe people. I mean, I asked Adam a question, he doesn't know. So Tina asked a question.
There's a rebellion on.
You know,
there's a rebellion on here,
what's
Adam.
The point? I mean, it's just unbelievable. Go on, Tina.
I have quite a quick answer, and one thing I will say is that my answer would probably have been different an hour ago. Because you know, we've signed another netminder. That would have been my only concern, is overplaying the netminders. But if we've got 3, then no. I mean, I'm not a fan of double up games anyway. I'm glad we're not doing them. I am a little bit upset that with us stamping out the double up games, Belfast and Fife have ended up putting one together. You know, I mean, that's fine. That's up to, you know, it's up to them. They've sorted that out. They've organised that. But I don't agree with them, and I'm so glad that we're not doing them. So I don't want to do them, but my answer would have been very different had we not signed another netminder. So yeah, I think it's an absolute, definite 100% no for me.
Okie dokie. While Adam still thinks about his answer, and I'll come to you.
Hell no. No way. I hate, regardless of how many extra games it gives us, I despise the whole doubling up of cup and league games. It just devalues the cup and makes things very, very messy when it comes to, do you play? When we didn't have overtime in the Challenge Cup, for instance, in the group stages. Can you remember those days?
Yeah.
And like we had doubled up games. It's like, what happens if it's a draw? Do you play for overtime? And that case, you take the draw in the cup. It's nonsense. No, I hate it. You play a game for the tournament it's part of. That's it.
Very good, Adam. There you go. You've had 1 minute to think of an answer.
Have.
So, what have you got for us?
Well, I agree with Ant in the sense that every game should just be for the competition that it was originally built to be in. So, I don't like the concept of league games counting for more than just 2 league points. I don't think I feel quite as strongly about it as Ant or Tina, but I don't like the idea of doubling up. I can't say that it's not fair to arrange these, I think, into the season because, clubs obviously do it for convenience, but, what have the other clubs got to say about it? Because some clubs might go in and say, well, we've had the option of doubling up games, but we're fundamentally against it. But other clubs in the league might say, oh, yeah, we'll take every opportunity to try and double up some of the games to maybe cut down on travelling expenses or whatever. So I think that, for some clubs to double up fixtures and other clubs not to, it's too much of an uneven and unlevel playing field for me.
Can I just add as well? Sorry.
Go for it.
How many games did they play in the NHL? 80-something each? Yeah. And that's before the playoffs start. That's 30-odd more games than what we play over here. So, yeah, I don't see the need for it. I can understand it when it happened because of ice time availability and what have you. But I hated it then, and I really don't like the idea. Sorry.
And I kind of hate to be this person that brings this up, but, from a business point of view, doubling up games, isn't really a positive, is it? Because you're losing out on another day's of income, etc. So from that point of view, maybe that's why doubling up games isn't thought of as much nowadays as it used to be. But thank you very much for your question, John, and let's hopefully be asking that question in another 3, 4, 5 weeks' time as well, because we will be playing more than 2 additional games. But hey-ho, that's for another evening. But let's move on to the final 2 questions, and I'm going to combine the 2 because they're very, very similar. So the first one is from Stephen Elliott, and Stephen Elliott asks, would you start Gospel on Tuesday next week, especially now we have topped the group? And Aaron Sankey asks, would you rest key players and give Gospel a start and Hazeldine and Tetlow ice time in the final game against TPS? Now, obviously, you could also say about Jordan Kessel as well into that. But so let's kind of combine those 2 questions together and let's go around the panel this evening. And granted, we will talk more about the Turku game on Monday night's podcast, but let's answer Stephen and Aaron's questions. So, Tina, I'll come to you first. Would you start Gospel? Would you rest key players, or do you think let's go out with a bang and keep it as it is?
The only reason I would have any hesitation on that is because yes, fine. We've qualified. We've topped the group. There's nobody that could overtake us. We're in the position that we are, and that's that. However, everybody else is still playing for that second spot. You know, I mean, I think there's an exceptional set of circumstances that would see Mountfield qualify, but it would have to be pretty exceptional. I think, you know, it would have to be a win, and you know, we beat Turkey. I don't know, maybe I've got that wrong, but.
Manfield is second in the group at the moment.
Yeah. So you know, all three teams that are still playing could qualify. And yes, fine. You know, you want to give Gospel the ice time, but you also want to give you know, some respect to your fellow opponents. You know, if Burn and Mountfield, you know, sort of checking over the progress of our game and going, hang on a minute, they put their young British backup in. You know, just. Were they just trying to throw it away? You know, and it's like you could just be the target of a lot of sour grapes if we do that. But I would love to see Gospel start. You know, anybody who listens to the podcast regularly and doesn't switch off would know that I am a massive supporter of the underdog. I love to see young Brits doing well. So, you know, Gospel, Tetlow, Kelsall, and you know, I've not seen him play yet, but Hazeldine, I would love to see those guys get some good experience. But by the same token, you don't want to throw them into situations that they're not ready for. They haven't had an awful lot of ice time in the Elite League, so yeah, there would be a bit of a question mark on how they would handle the CHL caliber of players. You know, how would they handle playing against, you know, a top Finnish team? So I think it's a big question mark for me. But you know, it's sort of finally balanced on, yes, I'd love to see Gospel get some, you know, valuable experience, but also, you know, we want to make a good showing of it, and we don't want to disrespect our opponents.
Okay, Adam, I will come to you next. I mean, what's your feeling on it?
I think they're all valid points that Tina made there about, you know, taking the competition seriously, and, you know, taking the competition seriously for all 6 group games and not for 5 and then put the feet up and, you know, pour the cocktails for the 6th game. So I think Gospel wouldn't let anybody down if he played next Tuesday. And I'm sure he'd be, you know, certainly up for the challenge. But I'm a little bit worried about some of the other guys, the outskaters, who might be thrown into that sort of setting and environment, because, you know, they don't have a great deal of you know, Elite League experience. They've hardly iced. I don't know whether any have had shifts in any Elite League games yet, or Challenge Cup games. But, you know, from maybe being involved in a few pre-season friendlies to then being thrown in against, you know, Turku, who need to win to qualify. Yeah, I don't know whether it would stunt their development a bit, you know, if they went out there and they were maybe culpable for a few mistakes, or, you know, the opposite might apply. They might actually thrive on it and, you know, give really good accounts of themselves. So I'm in two minds as to whether, you know, it's worth making big changes to the lineup and the roster next week. I mean, there's a school of thought to say, well, let's just, you know, carry on as we've been doing because we've got good momentum. We don't really want to shake it up, because if we did shake it up and if it went spectacularly wrong in Turku, I know it's a dead rubber for us, but, you know, would the confidence of the side be as high as it might be now if we came out of there on the back of an 8 or 9-0 defeat, for example? So, you know, I think, you know, Corey's smart enough to know when the right time is to introduce these players. Maybe they might go along and get a couple of shifts each in the right sort of circumstances during the game. So I know that was a complete cop-out of an answer, and I've not really been definitive either way, but that's as good as you're getting from me, I'm afraid.
That's all right, I accept that, to be fair. And I do think you make a good point, and this would be my kind of stance on it. I think, you know, talk of resting key players it depends on how you take that, really. And I think, like you just said, Adam, giving players a couple of shifts, you know, letting these players experience what it is like to play in these games. And let's not forget, you know, it's not a home game. It's you're going into somebody else's arena, you're travelling away, and like you said, they need to win to stay in the competition. By all means, let them have a shift here and there, and you know, even maybe start Garnett, and if he wants to play 2 periods, and then let Gospel play 1 period. I mean, I think that's how I personally would play it. But I mean, let's give it to the man that hasn't had enough time on the podcast. And what would you do? You're in the shoes of Corey Nielsen. You know, you're safe. You know, you're through to the next round. The Nottingham Panthers are already in that pot. How do you go about it?
I asked exactly the same question after the game on Tuesday on Twitter. And a good friend of the show, Scotty Knowles, was the first one to get in touch and said momentum is key. And just to firstly go back to Tina's point about the value of the competition and what have you, we've earned the right to do whatever the hell we want with our team by finishing top of the group and not being touched now. If Corey went over to Finland with Sam Gospel, Hazeldine, Tetlow and Kelsall, and not only that, but called up a bunch of kids from the NIHL as it is now as well, and we just played a completely British team, that's his right. We've got every right to do that now. But like Scotty said, momentum is huge. Now, it's every chance we're going to go to Finland and lose, because they're a very, very, very good team, and I'll be very surprised if we actually manage to get another win away from home. Will Gospel start? I'm assuming Galbraith isn't allowed to start, is he? Has he missed the sign-in deadline for the CHL?
Probably.
I don't know how it works.
I think he might have done.
So, I mean, if he's not available, then maybe. I honestly don't know, but I mean, Adam said it as well. It's like, what happens if they go out, they play regular shifts and we get an absolute shellacking? You know, what's that going to do for their confidence? You know what? I'm going to join Adam on the fence. And
we're dancing on the fence.
Yeah, we're dancing on the fence, not on the ceiling. Pull some splinters out of our backsides, I think. But I can't give you an answer one way or another. But what I will say is, if that's what Corey wants to do, then he's got every right to do it, because we've already won the group.
There you go. Well, I say let's end on that, to be honest, folks, because there's no better way than ending on those words. But thank you very much to everybody that has sent in a question over the past few days. It's very much appreciated. If you would like to catch up on any of the podcasts that we have done this week, there was obviously a preview podcast on Monday, and there was a short post-Turku game podcast on Tuesday as well. So listen, go to the website, follow us on Twitter, and you will see the links there, and listen in and send us any thoughts or comments. We really do appreciate it. But thank you very much for joining us this evening, or whenever you have listened to this podcast. And I would just like to say thank you very much to Adam.
Cheers, Aaron. Thanks, everybody.
No problem. Go and get your soothers, mate, and rest that throat of yours.
Thank you very much.
Tina, thank you very much as always.
TTFN.
And finally, the main man, Mr. Ant. Thank you very much for your short time. Sorry that you've had on the podcast, but thank you for joining us.
We'll do better next time.
It's been a pleasure. And can I just say, Aaron, it's nice to have you back, mate.
Yes.
It has been a while.
I second that.
There will be people out there that have switched off straight away as soon as they heard my voice. But hey ho, that's life. But thank you very much to the three of you for joining us for this AskTCW podcast, and we will see you next time.